Welcome to Blue Collar Catholic. Today, I am honored and privileged to have Archbishop Timothy Broglio, the Archbishop for the Archdiocese for the Military Service and the President of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Your Excellency, I am very humbled and honored that you would take time from your busy day to talk to me and my blue collar just regular guys and girls watching. Thank you so much.
It should be with you, and happy to spend a little bit of time with you.
Thank you. So I'm a veteran. I was 4 years in the Navy, 1985 to 1989. I know a lot's changed. Maybe we can talk about that. But a lot of my viewers are veterans, and they're really wondering about two particular chaplains. I know that there's been 9 chaplains in the history of the military to receive the Medal of Honor, and 5 happen to be Catholic priests. Now, I also read that 2 chaplains that are Catholic priests are up for sainthood, Father Capodanno and Father Capone, I believe.
Yes.
And everybody wants to kind of get an update where they are at.
Oh, okay. Actually, a third, Verbis Lafleur, who was a chaplain of the Army Corps, his cause has just been started. He was a priest of at Louisiana. Just at the very beginning of the cause, I've sent the documentation over to Rome, but it'll take a little while before there's a response. In terms of Father Capodanno, we presented the Positio, which is the document that reassumes his life and presents his cause as a candidate for sainthood on the basis of having given his life for others. That's that third category that Pope Francis has introduced.
Okay.
The Theological Commission had some questions for the development in his life. We have to go back and do a little bit more work to respond to those questions and to show how of his life for others was a logical conclusion to the way he had lived his life, first as a Marine missionary, and then later on as a chaplain to the Marine Corps, the United States Navy, but into the Marine Corps. And as you know, he died in Vietnam.
Right.
Father Capone, a very, very interesting character, because he was a chaplain in the Second World War and then volunteered to be a chaplain in Korea. He's from Wichita, Kansas, and that's the diocese that is pursuing his cause. Also have, on the basis of the Positio, also on the basis of one who his life for others. And of course, he was a war in Korea and really led his little band of prisoners in not being susceptible to brainwashing, which of course was what communists were trying to do, to keep them fed as well as he could. He was a farm boy, so he knew where the food was being kept and increased the rations.
Lord.
And then, of course, eventually, because the conditions were so rough, and he was actually sharing his own meals with others, he succumbed to pneumonia and died. So it'll be interesting to see now how next stage for Father Capone is responded to by the congregation. So we're kind of in a holding pattern for that.
So I had read there was 2,900 chaplains, just all chaplains, and only 280 Catholic priests for the entire military. Is that accurate?
Well, I don't know about the number of how many chaplains there are, but there are only 186 priests on active duty as we speak.
So we definitely
those numbers are very fresh.
Wow. Well, when I was in the military, I had a Navy chaplain that kind of mentored me, and although I was a Protestant and he was a Protestant, he was a captain. So on my base, he was the highest ranking officer other than the CEO of the base. And I never really thought about it. I was a young E2 and I just looked at him like a brother. And I never realized it until my commander had to salute him when I was talking to him. I was like, wow, that's my buddy. So, but of course, I had to salute the commander, you know.
Right.
But it's such a special thing to have a chaplain because you know they do so many things. And looking back, if I was a Catholic, wow, to have a priest that could offer me the sacrament. So there is a great need. What are we doing to fill this need? Because if there's only 100, what'd you say, like 180?
186, yes.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely not enough for. There's over 2
No,
million people in the military.
it's not. And so we're doing things really. One, some places inside where we don't have a priest, we get a contractor. So he's brought in, he's not in uniform, but he's
Okay.
able to offer the sacraments and assure the Catholic and installation. So that's one thing. The thing, of course, is we're trying to increase recruiting. So they're bringing more priests into the military. And that depends a lot on interesting the priest in this mission. But of course, it also depends on the priest being able to meet the physical fitness requirements of the military. And you know, that wedge of the pie is a little bit smaller than it was when you were in the
I didn't even
service.
think of that. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
You
we
know,
got to get
generally
a.
priests are older than many Protestant ministers, so it's a little bit more challenging. The
Yeah.
third thing we're doing is we have a program of co-sponsored seminarians. We have some 40 men who are studying for the priesthood, territorial diocese or religious order, um, and they have agreed, and their bishop has agreed that after they're ordained and spend 3 years in a parish, come on active duty for at least 5 years. And so that will be a remedy which is already trickling in now, but it will definitely continue to be a constant source of priests for the military.
And I can see the benefit for the parish as well because you send a man out for 5 years in the military. There's experiences he's going to have that he wouldn't have in his local diocese, and he can bring so much back. And then if they stay in, like I said, my chaplain was a captain, so he had
Excellent.
huge influence on the whole base. You know, so either way, whether they stay in long or whether they get out after a short enlistment, I see the positive for the church.
Very definitely, very definitely. It's a win-win situation for all concerned.
Amen. Now, I have some friends that are still in on active duty, and they all speak very highly of you and your diocese. They said the diocese has taken very good care of them, uh, and they are especially proud of you being their shepherd because they say you stand up for traditional Catholic values. You're not afraid to stand up for the traditional marriage. Uh, you also, you know, took a what I didn't think was controversy, but some said was a controversial stance. You said the military shouldn't force people to take the COVID vaccine. So I want to thank you on their behalf for standing up for their rights, and just ask you: do you think any of our rights are being, aside from the vaccine mandate? What about our First Amendment rights in the military? Are they still being respected? When I was in, they were very respectful of all our chaplains. Is that still the case?
Well, I think there's still great respect. Of course, as far as the chaplains themselves are concerned, the amendment is almost an absolute for them because in the case of a Catholic, he really cannot be forced to do something that I say that he cannot do. Um, However, I think for the rank and file, a little more problematic because, as you know very well, um, not direct attack on you for your religious beliefs, but there are other ways to, you know, perhaps a promotion that doesn't come about, or you know, some other maybe an unfavorable assignment. Are those other ways try and certain sense pour people into a mold. Now, I mean, obviously the military does form people, but you want that you don't want them, those who raise their right hand to the Constitution. You don't want to see them deprived of their right, particularly their First Amendment right in that same Constitution. So I think that's something, a place where I've tried to be very vigilant. Tried to speak out when it's necessary. I've tried to defend people to the extent that I can. It's funny. Frequently, I hear from Protestant ones that they're grateful for my stance because they really don't have anyone who can speak with the same sort of authority, and so I'm a little bit of support as well.
Awesome. So I also have I have a father in our diocese, Father Paul Oy, who is attached to the Veterans Hospital here in Orlando at Lake Nona, and he said it's the most rewarding work dealing with the veterans that he's ever done, but it's the most challenging as well. What advice would you give to the local churches to support these VA hospitals and these veterans coming back, from Iraq and Afghanistan that have, been through a lot?
The first thing, obviously, is to remember to pray for these veterans in general. Especially pray for those who are dealing with maybe with PTSD or maybe even physical ailments as well. We never forget them because they did sacrifice for all of us. I think secondly, that like Knights of Columbus and some of those other groups very helpful in volunteering at VA hospitals. I also realize there's a limit to what you can volunteer to do because of course the federal government does not let you volunteer for anything that they would pay someone to do. But frequently we have Knights of Columbus groups that wheel people to Apple for services or maybe go around and visit the hospital, provided of course sometimes now with the restrictions the hospitals aren't as open as they once were, but in recent weeks that's the only place I've worn a mask is to go into the VA hospital. I mean that's not a major problem, but those are ways that we can help and that we can reach out to veterans and let them know that their sacrifice is appreciated.
Amen. Amen. Now, when I was a Protestant, Billy Graham when the late Billy Graham, he always seemed to get the ear of every president, whether it was someone who agreed with his philosophy, his religion, or someone who totally disagreed, someone that you would never think would talk to Billy Graham. Billy Graham was able to talk to. With your election as the president of the USCCB, do you think there's any chance Joe Biden would call you for a little consultation?
Well, I'm not standing by my phone waiting for that call, but actually just today, one from the president's office reached out, arranged an encounter with but at least invite me to something, and I thought that was a very positive sign. Unfortunately, it'll be when I'm already visiting the troops in Central Europe. I was very appreciative of the outreach. Made it known that I would welcome an opportunity to speak with the president. And in a certain sense, all I really can do is say that I'm willing to do so and that my door is open. And then we'll wait and see what. And of course, I realize too that my schedule may be complicated, but his is really complicated. So
that's true. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So, as the new president of the USCCB, do you have any plans for unity? I mean, I came to the Catholic Church and I was so excited about the unity, and I still believe we are united. We're one holy Catholic Apostolic Church. I believe I was Protestant for 30 years, and you cannot compare. Protestants are so disunified. There's no comparison. But over the years since I've been back, I was surprised to see some disunity. Do you feel like we need to take action to bring unity, to bring more unity?
think we definitely do. And I think one of the things that I would like to continue the good work Archbishop Gomez did in vein, trying to unify the bishops, and of course, hopefully, we're more unified, or at least if we present a more unified faithful, then they might imitate some of that. I think a few things are necessary. One is the ability to listen to one another. You know, so often I think we don't really depart for a conversation. We depart from a monologue. You know, I say what I'm going to say, and you say what you're going to say, but we don't listen to each other.
You're right.
I think that's we have to try to, you know, we used to say try to walk in the other person's shoes for a while. That would be helpful. The second thing is, I don't know, I'm obviously older than you are, but when I was a little boy, you know, there was things that you kept in the family, you know. We didn't always go out and cast on the housetops our disagreements or our mistakes or the mistakes of someone else. And I think we could learn to do a little bit more of that too. You know, Jesus in the gospel very clear about we deal with disagreements. You know, you the individual one-on-one, and then there's no satisfaction there. You bring a couple of other people, and then you know you bring in the church, and then if there's no hope at all, you denounce the individual. But that's after a long process, and I think sometimes it's because communication is so instantaneous in today's world, we forget about those other steps that are very important. You know, have I really listened to what the other person is saying? Have I really to help him or her understand what I'm saying? Those are important steps, and even in haste, you really can't get those.
I think you're right. I think, like you said, with the instantaneous ability, if something bothers you, you can just go on YouTube and say it. And I've been guilty of that myself, where I actually pulled a video down because I said that was uncharitable. You know, not against any individual, but just in general. You know, maybe. And you're right. You're absolutely right. That's what we need more of. And I'm going to dedicate this channel to unity. I'm going to dedicate this channel to bringing more understanding and bringing more diverse people in. I know I came back and I only know the Novus Ordo church, you know, that's all I know. But I have a lot of friends that came on the show that love the Latin Mass, and they felt like they were under attack on that. And I noticed that you allow the Latin Mass in the Archdiocese. Is that part of the reason for unity? Am I understanding that correct?
I think it is. I've interacted with a number of younger members of my flock. My flock, by definition, is young, but youngest in the United States. Most of my folks are between 8 and 38. But I've interacted with a number of younger folks in the flock, and touched by how much not so much Mass in Latin, but the form of Mass to them. And so I've tried to at least those that are capable of celebrating let's call it the Tridentine Mass, or the Mass according to the 1962 Missal, allowed them to continue to do that. And of course, you know, our situation is a little different than any other bishop of the United States, because for one thing, we only have one parish at West Point. Okay, everything else is in general a shared chapel. So your ability even to add additional masses and so forth is somewhat limited. One thing I did ask is that 1962 Missal Mass not replace the regularly scheduled Sunday Mass, so that people do have an option. And I think that's been well received. I don't think it's necessary to eliminate all possibilities. And of course, the other thing about my people, or the people who have been entrusted to my care, a better way to put that, in general, grateful to have mass. They'll go to whatever mass is being celebrated.
Man, no,
But
you're right.
if they have enriched by this celebration, then I would like to at least make it available.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would imagine in wartime in Iraq and Afghanistan, how do they even get the sacraments? Do our chaplains go out there and risk their lives still?
They do. In fact, the only chaplain who died of his wounds in the war in Iraq was a Catholic priest, Father Timothy Broglio, who was on his way to celebrate mass and was in a vehicle that hit a roadside bomb, and a few years before he died, but eventually he died of his wounds. And he was making progress. I visited him in 2008, shortly after I came to the archdiocese, and he knew who I was. His ability to express himself and so forth was a little bit limited. He was making progress, and then he passed away. And actually, we have here at the archdiocese, we have his chalice. His sister gave it to us after his mother died. So then that's something very, very precious.
Wow, there's no greater love than a man lay down his life for a friend. And that's what I found in my time in the Navy. The chaplains were the friends. They were your best friends. And so the chaplain corps, I came into the Navy at 19, and I wasn't a practicing Christian in no sense. I was a chief sinner, to be honest with you, Archbishop. And God led me by his grace back home eventually. But I was surprised at how involved the chaplains were in the military life. And I wonder, how long has that been? When was the first chaplain ordained or commissioned, I should say, because they're officers? When was the
That's
first
right.
one commissioned?
Well, it's very interesting. I'm glad you asked that question. The first thing that George Washington asked of the Continental Congress after he accepted commission to be the King General was chaplain. And so it's
That is
from the
amazing.
beginning of the armed forces. Now, of course, there were no Catholics among those chaplains because at that point, for the 13 colonies, there were only, if there were 1 million Catholics in this country, would be a lot.
Wow.
But we did have chaplains in the Continental
That's
Army.
amazing. That's
And
amazing.
and curious too, what did Washington want them to do? He wanted them to be ministers, but he also wanted them to advise him,
Wow.
and he wanted them to tell him the truth.
That's
So,
interesting.
and it was interesting that it was part of the job that they were given was to advise the commander on the realities that they saw. And I thought that was significant that he would depend on a man of the cloth to do that.
Very significant. Is that part of the job description of chaplains today? Do you know?
It certainly is. When it's
Wow.
called upon to advise the commander, and I
That
could
is
tell you some
amazing.
stories of, for instance, in the recent conflicts in the Middle East, the detachment of Marines that were going to land someplace, they were the commander was going to make a real show of force. They were going to be armed to the teeth, and they were going to go down on the ship. And the chaplain, and of course, he was a Catholic, and we have a certain liberty, like he wouldn't have a job if he got to the Navy. Closed the door and said, let's look at this another way. What if you send the Marines down and have them pass out water? Which of course in the Middle East in many places is a very precious thing. And instead of a show of force, make it a show of friendship.
Mm.
Listen to him, and it was very successful. There was no aggression against
Wow.
the landing forces.
That is an amazing. I've never heard that story. That is amazing. And General Petraeus, his success was kind of like doing stuff like that, right? Getting in with the
Right.
people in the villages. That's what a wise chaplain that was. That's an amazing story. That is
Had
amazing
the courage
story.
to do that. Dad, he already a captain.
There you go. My chaplain, Navy chaplain, named Captain Phil Holwadger, and I'm sure he's retired now because he was older then. But he told me he was attached to the Marines in Vietnam, and he had a
Wow.
chest full of medals. He had a chest full of medals, and I noticed that a lot of chaplains have a lot of medals, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, the major general of the chaplain corps in the Army, not this one, but the two prior, were Catholic priests, right?
That is correct. They were both Catholic priests.
And they go through all the training. I've seen airborne badges and like medals that you only get in war.
Exactly, exactly. The most recent from the Army before Chaplain Soljan was Chaplain Hurley, the West Point grad.
Wow.
So he had in the Army before he was ordained a priest and then came back as a chaplain.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's very interesting. Well, Archbishop, I know that you're a super busy man, and I'm so thankful that you gave me this opportunity to talk with you. And you're welcome back anytime you would like.
Thank you very
But
much.
before you go, is there anything you could tell the faithful? We've kind of been beaten up the last couple of years, and like you said, people throw our family laundry out in public on YouTube, and a lot of Catholics are feeling discouraged. Can you just give us a word of encouragement, please?
Well, yes, I certainly can. Let me also thank you for this opportunity. But we remember at this time of year that the Lord became one of us in order to save us, and really also to show us potential that humanity has. We should remember that as we go forward, to try and draw on the gifts that we have received, and so to gifts to remain faithful to Him and invitation that He issues. In this country too, we're engaged in a great Eucharistic revival, so it's a good idea to remember where we find our strength, where we find our solace, and also to remember that we're never alone. And if we keep that in mind, I think that helps us going forward in a very positive way.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank
And
you very
bless
much,
you.
Archbishop. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Same to you.